Hello, I thought I would just show you guys some of the cards that I have been having large success with in the last couple of weeks and months. These cards don't actually all go in a single deck together. They're more like tech options and filler cards and the big bosses for archetypes. So yeah, they also fit some slots for other cards you may not have. There's both budget friendly and paid player friendly cards in here, so I'm sure there's something for you. And if you know it already, congratulations, you're already in infinity. I'd like to mention my favorite cards at the moment in the budget friendly category first. So this is what I'm currently running around with on the side. These obviously don't all go in a deck together. That is so strange. First off, we have Scorpion. I think it's an insane turn to play pretty much always. It has pretty good stats for 2 mana with 2 power, and the value it gives for -1 in every card in their hand is insane. So if they've played 1 card on by turn 2, you give -4 overall. So it's like 6 stats worth of power, I guess, for 2 mana, which is insane. And if any location triggers him twice, it's just a bonus for him, and it never feels bad to play him. It also hurts Thanos players a lot with the Infinity Stone field hands that only have 1 power anyway. So I think he's a really good choice just as like a standard 2-drop card. Next up we have Shadow King. He is just an insanely good final turn or turn 5 play. I typically don't play him at all before turn 5 or 6, just so that my opponent builds up as much as they can before I can shred it down back to nothing. And I think that he is only good on turn 5 and 6. He's a pretty good card. He is series 3 though, so he might be a bit annoying to get for some people. I actually didn't get him till very late in my series 3, like really high up, so that was kind of annoying. But yeah, I think he's a really good like counter all kind of card. Armor / Kyra is up next, which in some decks serves a dual role. So Armor serves as either to stop destroy decks, which are on the rise again with armor, and also to protect any big bads that you have on your side of the field. Kyra is more just for your 1 and 6 cost, and obviously doesn't impact your opponent as much. I personally think Kyra is better, but she is obviously quite new and hard to get. I think you have to go in less on one location with her. However, armor is essentially just the free version that you get given of her. So if you don't have Kyra, she's obviously still worth playing. And also I find that armor is more discouraging to your opponent than Kyra is. So if you put armor in a location and if they're playing any type of destroy, they typically just avoid it entirely. Lockjaw is up next. He's sort of only a recent addition to my favorites list, but god is he a good one. Didn't really like this card when I first started playing. I was like, yeah, I'd rather just play the card I want to play than gamble it. But with the popularity and power of low cost cards rising, I find that he's an amazing pick in almost all the decks. I think he works well in discard, big card decks, anything ongoing. He's a bit of a gamble in destroy, but I think he's fun in general, and also I think he is one of the best cards in Thanos decks. Playing him with stone, drawing off of the stone, and then getting a bigger card, or even another stone to draw more, is just insane. We have Cosmo next. For obvious reasons, he's essentially filling the role of Professor X for most decks, and if you play Cosmo in a location, I find that your opponent will hardly ever touch it at all, even if they're not playing on reveal cards. I just think that he is a great deterrent, and typically they'll avoid that location at all costs. The only thing he doesn't really work against is obviously Living Tribunal, but Cosmo has just been here since the start, and he is just so annoying. Next up, we have Killmonger. Now, he is honestly one of my favorite cards, if not my actual favorite card in the game. I love playing Destroy, and he is an absolute blast with Daken, X-23, Deadpool, but I do also like using him in and against Thanos decks. Now, in Thanos, I find if I filled my board with too many crappy Infinity Stones and get like a Raptor location or something and just fill up the board with crap, or someone debris you, he can just clear all of that and nuke all of the fluff, and now you can actually finally start playing helpful, meaningful, big cost cards now that you've drawn a bunch of it. Also against Thanos, I think he's just good to get rid of the Soul Stone, or he just takes a bunch of points off their side of the board, because they typically, I've seen people just concede if they're playing stones and you play him, especially if they're setting up for actually playing Thanos, like they have the Power Stone down, they'll just concede on the spot. Following this, we have New Wonders in Old Blood with Super Skrull, a card I largely benched for almost all of last year in 2023 until the very end, who I now consider a staple in every deck. I think he is one of the best. On turn 4, if you're missing anything, just play him. It just deters your opponent so much. If you draw this against Tribunal, Onslaught, Iron Man-y decks, It basically wins you the game on its own, and that because they're so popular right now, I think he's just like an auto-include. He's just like a catch-all for that deck. And it also stops any rogue kind of ongoing decks that you want going on. Not rogue as in the card, rogue as in like off-meta ongoing decks that want to do something funny with you. It's a good way just to keep them in check a little bit as well. Also, if you get a free Wong out of it, I think it is amazing. Shang-Chi takes up another slot as one of the all-time favorites. His nerf has done a little bit to curb his overpresence we saw in 2023. However, I think with Blob coming back and big cards being on the rise again, he's come out of the woodwork again, and I think he's just in a nice comfortable spot right now. And in this game, I think that he is just a staple for getting rid of She-Hulk, Thanos, Blob. That's all my brain can think of. Null, Death, just anything like that. He's just so good at just being that. It tilts you. You versus Shang-Chi, that tilts you, you know? I would never play him before turn 5 or 6. And obviously he has very limited use against ongoing decks or locations that affect the location specifically, and not the cards in it, because obviously he doesn't hit the location. Typically, if you're missing anything in a deck, I think he is the first card most people will go to, and for good reason. Now, one of the most budget-friendly picks on the list is Enchantress. With 5 power, she's pretty solid. She's just like a pure free-to-play card, and she has a high impact on Tribunal decks and Onslaught decks, which seems to be like the most common thing I've seen right now. Though 2 of these 4-cost slots are almost exclusively for Tribunal Onslaught decks, I think it's worth it, because anything above 60, I find that Tribunal is super duper prevalent, and it's hard to deal with without it. So yeah, Enchantress at whatever spot this is, number 9. Leech is next. Oh my god, it is my favorite card to hate. I never actually run it. Like, I just have never used it. I fucking hate this card. But it has personally lost me more games on this list than any other card I can actually think of. When I'm running Destroy, Discard, Blob Thanos, it is just the biggest slap in the face. Turning everything into vanilla nothings, it makes Death unplayable, it makes Null useless, it makes Blob useless. It is so annoying. You can't play Hela, you can't do anything big on turn 6. And it's even worse because the abilities stay gone if there is a turn 7, if Limbo is in the game. So it's so annoying, especially because Limbo is like the most common location in the whole game. This card is it. This card's for you. If you want to make people just want to kill themselves, this is the card. Legion. This is more of a fun pick than anything. I think he's fun and useful at the same time. With pretty big power on 7, I find his ability is either completely useless or game winning if I'm behind. Doing nothing all game when Bar with no name is on the board, and then playing him on turn 6 just to win for doing nothing is one of the cheesiest, fun, stupid ways you can win. His effectiveness is obviously RNG dependent on the locations, but I think he is one of the best cards for helping you win games that you would have otherwise lost entirely. And finally, for the budget cards, I guess he's a little less budget. What series is he? Series 3, he's kind of budget. We have Magneto, whose popularity I think changes often. It depends on what's going around, obviously. I think that I typically use him if I want to force all of my opponent's good mid-range cards onto a single location. I know I've already won, or I'm just going to sack off that location and reduce the points of the other locations. Like, I know that's just the point of him, but he's also just a fat stat number. He's so good against cards like Werewolf by Night and Enchantress and anything else that's just got a good stat line. Or if they have some kind of combo with Arnim Zola and you just yoink that card away. It's so good. Like if someone's trying to Arnim Zola Venom and you just steal Venom to that location, it's so good. They do literally nothing. He's also great with Blob. If Blob absorbs him on 14, he goes to 26, which is good post Blob nerf. Now we're going to move on to more of the pay to win style cards. They're not pay to win, they're just the more premium style cards. As you can see, most of these cards are the big bad of the archetype, so we're not actually going to be talking about cards like Thanos, Tribunal, Blob, High Evo, or Hela. The entire point of the deck is obviously those cards. It is worth noting though that these cards in particular are meta shaping, and their ability to do what they do is unmatched, which is why most of those budget cards are actually chosen, is to mitigate what these cards can actually do. Let's talk about more interesting cards on the list, like Nebula. So every person I know is on the fence about putting her in their deck, and then for some for some reason they just go, oh, this combo piece isn't working that I want. They put Nebula in, they never turn back. She is like the best 1-cost card. I thought it was like Korg or something for so long, just like, you know, hindrance, but she is insane. She is a good play until turn 4. She just has so much impact. She can be like 8 power for 1. That's stupid. You put no investment into her. She's just there. The fact that it forces your opponents to play cards there, or your opponent ignores that location and she gets buffed up so high for free, is insane. That alone is worth more than her actual power, is like the potential impact of her. She also works well with Lockjaw. If it's a later play and it's something bigger and better to cycle into, it's better to get that 1-cost out of your hand with Lockjaw, so she feels really good in Thanos stuff-ish. Not really Thanos itself, but anything using Lockjaw. Yeah, I think she is extremely valuable. You can see I don't even have the original one. I bought the cheap winter crappy one because I just wanted her so bad. Wong is pretty self-explanatory. He allows cards with relatively high costs, bad stat line, but good on reveals to go off more. It's more fun. I mean, getting beaten by Wong is infuriating, but stuff like Gambit, so fun. Gambit's so fun. White Tiger, Ironheart. I might make a video on Wong decks to see what silly stuff we can pull off. I think it'd be fun. Next up is Werewolf by Night. Despite being a 4/4 now instead of, I think, 3/3, I think he's really good with Thanos and Sarah specifically. Sarah, I'm sorry I said that wrong. I find that most games he's in the realm of 8 to 14 power in Thanos because you just play the Infinity Stones, man. It's insane. He's so annoying. He can't be stopped because he's not ongoing. So it's really good. Phoenix Force is a bit of a fun pick here. I love Phoenix Force. When she first came out, I tried to actually put her in a straight up destroy deck. I didn't love it. But now she has some goofy destroy move hybrid decks that just hurt. Like, before you realize what your opponent's doing, it's too late. They've got a 60 plus Phoenix Force that's just jumping around the match. They play Taskmaster and the game's over. You've lost to like 3 cards. It's so much fun though. It's also a very niche counterplay to Shang-Chi if you feel like it. I just love it. I think it's a great card. It definitely doesn't feel overpowered for a Battle Pass card, but it just is fun. Next up is Iron Lad. I think we can all agree he's just a generically good 4-mana pick with a solid body with 6 power. He's almost always one of my 2 4-mana slots in decks. So I'll run him and maybe I'll run Super Skrull, or I'll run him and I'll run Shang-Chi if I want to be more, I was going to say aggressive. I don't know, reactive, I guess is the right word. He just copies whatever's on top. It's just generically good. He's just like the generically good card to play. Even though he's Series 5, he kind of plays like a common does in other card games where like you have to include this staple always. That's what he feels like. He feels like a staple pick. And finally we move on to Scar and Death. They both sort of fit similar roles here. We'll start off with Scar though. Actually, Scar has come in with the most recent World Hulk Battle Pass, and I think he's a solid inclusion. He doesn't feel overpowered enough where he's going to get nerfed soon, so I feel like my investment is safe in buying that Battle Pass. I love using him if I have Werewolf by Night out or Nebula gets over 10 power. He also benefits hugely from running Magic. I think Magic is a staple in most decks now. He can come out for nearly free, typically 2 or 4 by turn 7. He's also super nice to Lockjaw into if you Infinity Stone into him, or if you just play any low card, you pull him out. It's not like you're losing your last turn play. He's just a chunky boy. Death is similar to Scar in this sort of realm. She's obviously a bit more destroy, discard niche-y. She can guarantee you discard over all other cards in your hand, obviously, because she sits at 8, which is great, and destroy, she's just a free big play. I love her with Null. Venoming her and then playing Null is insane. Or if you play her and you can Arnim Zola anything, especially if you played Killmonger, she's free 90% of games with Destroy. I just think she's really good, and I've seen people just run her like nothing else. They just run her. It's like, why? But if you play Galactus, your opponent just throws down a Death and you're like, oh, I guess this is here and I lose now. You know, it's real funny. And that is it. Those are my top budget and sort of pay to win picks for early 2024. They'll help you all get to infinity in no time. I haven't hit it yet this season, but don't tell anyone. I'm like 92. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, the budget cards are more to counter the big bads that you can't afford just yet, but will win you the game because you countered them. And then the pay to win cards are literally the I'm just going to brute force my way to a higher elo. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely day and go get those cubes. Bye bye.